Well, hi there, my name is Ross Deuchar, and as well as being a Scottish criminologist, I'm also currently training to become a fully recognised mindfulness meditation coach and teacher with the Scottish charity Mindfulness Scotland. I'm just in the final stages of that training just now. But I've actually been practicing mindfulness meditation for a lot longer than that. I first started in my journey with mindfulness round about 7 or 8 years ago, and it was after reading this book here that I stumbled across in Waterstones one day. It's called Mindfulness: Finding Peace in a Frantic World, written by Mark Williams and Danny Penman. Now, I think we are currently living in a really frantic world because, as well as all the other stresses and strains that we have around us, we now have the new phenomenon of coronavirus. Now, obviously, this is a very real threat that's out there across the world, but we also have the 24/7 news reporting around it, the constant reporting about the numbers of cases increasing, the real threats and the risks around it. And I think this is increasing everybody's stress, fear, and anxiety. And I think we all need to find a little bit of peace in a frantic world. So, what exactly is mindfulness? Well, mindfulness was first introduced to Western psychology and medicine in the 1970s by John Kabat-Zinn. So he created the first mindfulness-based stress reduction program at that time in the University of Massachusetts. And it was first used actually as a vehicle for people with chronic physical health problems. It let patients see the familiar pathways of fear and avoidance sometimes compounded their experiences of pain, and they could actually respond to pain in radically new ways. Now, the same applies to how we respond to difficult thoughts and emotions. Sometimes we tend to try and solve these emotions and these thoughts through using our problem solving skills, drawing upon our kind of doing part of the brain and the mind. And actually, what is much more effective is if we draw upon the being part of our mind, move from doing to being. And sometimes that means just sitting with the difficult thoughts and emotions and just sitting in the present moment non-judgmentally and thinking about these thoughts, these feelings and emotions almost like clouds in the sky. Sometimes they will be dark and gloomy, sometimes they will be lighter and so small that we hardly notice them at all. But ultimately, they're constantly changing shape, evolving, and eventually they disappear if we just allow them to be there. So, mindfulness, the attitudinal foundations of mindfulness, are focused on adopting this non judgmental approach. It's about having patience, it's about adopting a beginner's mind when you're sitting in the present moment, having trust, non striving, so you're not trying to get anywhere or to fix anything, acceptance of the present moment, and letting go. Now, let me tell you a couple of things about what mindfulness isn't and to dispel some of the myths. Mindfulness meditation is not a religion. So people with a religious faith can practice it. Those with no faith can practice it. It's very much delivered in Western society in a completely secular way. You don't actually have to sit cross-legged on the floor to meditate. I used to think when I started this at first that that would be something I would work towards and I would get to eventually. But actually, you can meditate anywhere, just sitting on a chair. I've even meditated on trains and buses and planes, so you can do it while you're travelling. The practices don't have to take a whole lot of time. Sometimes, if I do have time, it's really great to sit for 30 to 40 minutes and meditate. But equally, if you don't have that amount of time at your disposal, you can just get as much out of practicing for 2 or 3 minutes just literally sitting and taking a breathing space. So it's not complicated, and it doesn't have to be time consuming. So what this is about is quite simply sitting and taking a breath. Ultimately, it's about paying attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. So if you're feeling a bit stressed and anxious at the moment because of everything that's going on all around us, perhaps just slowly and gently closing your eyes wherever you might find yourself at the time. So you can do this in work, you can do it, when you arrive home in the evening for a few minutes. You can even do it, when you're traveling, as I said. And just beginning to refocus on the breathing, noticing each in-breath and each out-breath. Noticing, for instance, the sensation of the breath in the lower abdomen. You might begin to notice that the stomach area expands with each in-breath and deflates again with each out-breath. And don't worry if you begin to notice that as soon as you start focusing on the breathing, your mind starts to wander. That's completely natural, and that's just what minds do. And without giving yourself a hard time if you notice that happening, the idea is to just notice where the mind is going and gently but firmly escorting the attention back to the breath. Noticing each in-breath and each out-breath, noticing the pause as each out-breath becomes an in-breath and each in-breath becomes an out-breath again. And you might have to do this over and over again. Notice the mind wandering and just bringing the attention again back to the breath, firmly and gently. I would recommend practicing this every day. And perhaps after you've done that for a week or a couple of weeks, reflect on how you're feeling, how you're reacting to things. And is it any different from how it was before you started it? And I think you might find subtle differences beginning to appear if you do that. Basically, this kind of awareness, it nurtures greater awareness, clarity and acceptance of present moment reality. Ultimately, I hope that perhaps by trying out these practices, you might begin to find peace in what really is, at the moment, a frantic world. So thanks very much for listening, and I welcome any feedback from anyone, and I hope we can continue to have these kind of discussions, and you might want to think about trying out some of these practices. Thank you.